and we were just talking about Trump. Have you been paying attention to what they call silly season, which is election season?
Oh, yes. How could I not? It's everywhere I go.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate, we need to pay attention to elections every year and not just when the presidential elections is coming up. But so I definitely want to reiterate that. But we want to, because you might hear a lot of names, so what we want to do, we want to go down the whole list of candidates that are running, and we're going to give our brief thoughts. We're going to give our opinions on it, just so when you hear these names, you have some sort of idea of what they represent, because in the mainstream media, they usually don't do a good job of saying that. They just hear a name like such and such is running, and such says this, but no. You actually need to examine these people's records. It's not just for presidential elections. Like I said, you should do the same thing with your school board elections and your city council elections, your local elections, state elections, all of that. But since everybody's talking about the presidential elections right now, we're going to run through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go ahead and start it off. Now, first and foremost, I did want to make the point of saying that I feel that as voters, a lot of times people are just ill-informed. You vote going with the conversations that you hear when you're at work, when you're at church, when you're out with your friends and things like that. But when it comes to the real issues at hand and things that are important to you, I think it's important that you realize exactly what stance each of these politicians have as it comes to your own personal views and standards of the quality of life that you're looking to have. Now, with this, this is very early, but I'm laughing because already there's 14 Republican candidates and there's 5 Democratic candidates. But I think we're going to go ahead and just start with the Republicans first. Is that all right? Cool.
Yeah, let's run it down. Let's do it.
All right. So here we go. Now, Jeb Bush. That's the first one I want to discuss. Now, he's a former Florida governor, but I'm going to let you go ahead and take that one on.
Well, his last name is Bush. That should be almost an automatic disqualification as it is. So we elect a third Bush president. I mean, what is it? This is back to King. You passing it down through family members now, But even if that's you might say, okay, Sue, Miss Baba, that's unfair. He's a different person than his father and his brother. Okay, let's try that out. He was asked specifically, was it the right decision to go to Iraq? And he said his brother made the right decision, and he would have did it too, basically. So that's an automatic disqualification in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that, he claims to have links. Well, he does have links in the Hispanic community, and his stance is really about the path to legal. Well, he says that his stance is the path to legal status for undocumented people in our country. But a lot of people, I feel like he's gonna receive a lot of opposition just because of the fact that he is, nobody wants a third Bush.
Well, don't be surprised if he actually win, though. I think he got a great chance of winning, though.
I would be heartbroken if he does, and that's why it's important to know exactly what everyone's stance is, and to take this opportunity and go out and support those who are more aligned in what you think is good for yourself personally, but your group of people as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really would be really heartbroken and sad to see a third Bush in office, to be honest.
And it could happen because I think out of all the Republican candidates, I believe he didn't raise the most money. So in money talks, money is very important in this process. So he's an establishment candidate, and he really has a great chance of winning. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I think he lead in the polls in New Hampshire right now. And I think a lot of states Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just about to say that, there has been stats to say that he's the most capable of winning, which is going to be, like I said, heartbreaking, but we shall see.
Yeah.
Then we have Ted Cruz, and he's a U.S. senator, and he was actually the first one to officially declare that he was running for the presidency. He's arguably the most conservative of all the Republicans that are running. What are your thoughts on him?
Another clown. He's a straight clown. That's my thoughts. That's my thoughts about him. Again, like the Republicans always try and do symbolism too. They have a few candidates that would be considered minorities, and I guess technically Ted Cruz could be considered a minority, although he's basically like a white Latino, if you want to even call him Latino. But yeah, he basically almost every extreme position you could think of on the right, he shared that position. He's a very extreme guy, and I don't see him winning, but I think he would have a chance of winning the nomination. I think Jeb Bush's chance is a little bit better, but, you know, like I could see him sneaking out the nomination just for the illusion of being diverse. So, yeah.
I see what you're saying. And then we have Rand Paul, the son of Ron Paul, and he's a U.S. Senator of Kentucky, and his stance is pretty much just to make government smaller, among other things. But
yeah, he's a libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a libertarian. Libertarians basically believe in very, very limited government. Now, Rand Paul is an interesting case, very interesting case. I could see him getting the nomination as well. And it's actually a few issues I agree with Rand Paul on. It's crazy because it's about 15 to 20% of the issues I actually agree with him on, but the other 80% just all crazy. So, like on foreign policy, this is where I agree with him with. Like, I think he would be less likely to go to war or less likely to get involved in wars than even somebody like Hillary Clinton is. Because believe it or not, Hillary Clinton is kind of hawkish in foreign policy. He's not really a neocon or hawkish on foreign policy like that because, you know, again, he believes in limited government and don't like spending a lot of money. So that's the good part, I guess. Another good part is, like, with some civil liberties, I think he'll be good. He was like one of the people standing up for change with the Patriot Act and talking about warrantless wiretaps. That was good, although they called it something else and they repackaged it. So basically it's almost the same, just a little bit of change. But whatever, I think he'll be a little bit better on that issue than some other people. Not much, but a little bit. Now, here's the crazy part with him. Like, when he was running to be senator of Kentucky, he went on the Rachel Maddow show, and Rachel Maddow did a good job at asking him some very interesting questions. Because, you know, the libertarian philosophy is about one of limited government, and they don't really believe in passing a lot of different laws. So she asked him about the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and he was basically saying no, he wouldn't support that. He didn't support that, and it's okay for businesses to discriminate. Basically, he was just like, the market would take care of those businesses. The market would punish those companies that would discriminate, which makes no sense because Jim Crow was for how many years? And these businesses, and a lot of these businesses was up and running. And, like, when we talk about group economics, definitely we should circulate our dollar. But I think people should be free to shop wherever they want to shop at. You know, like we was watching Resurrected Black Wall Street. It should have been, yes, desegregation, but not focus on integration. But, yes, desegregation is good. It's a difference. So, and that raises red flags right there. Plus, those of you who are familiar with his father, Ron Paul was the head of a racist newspaper or newsletter in Texas, where, you know, they was supportive of stuff like the Confederate flag. They had KKK support. I remember with Ron Paul, his father was running for president because he ran for president in 2012 and '08. Some KKK members donated to him. They asked him, would he give back the money? He was like, no, basically. So these are like, it's funny because you get fooled with somebody like Rand Paul because, like I said, on some policies, like especially foreign policies, like, okay, I respect that. That sounds good. But other ones you like, hold on, because I got to get his exact views on decriminalization, but I believe I didn't heard Rand Paul talk about the war on drugs being bad and how it does affect the black community. So you'd be like, okay, as a black person, I like that. He against the war on drugs. But then you go deeper, be like, oh, that's crazy.
Exactly. I'm glad that you pointed out also the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So I'm going to bring that up a little bit later. But the next Republican candidate we have is Marco Rubio, the senator of Florida. And pretty much he's thinking that he'll be successful in uniting the Republican Party. And I thought that this was so interesting. He has a very interesting take on economic policies. One in particular has to do with the college tuition and college students. Now, his idea is to have investors actually cover college students' tuition in exchange of a percentage of their future earnings. I don't know how I feel about that.
That sounds like a disaster.
Exactly. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a disaster. But again, with a candidate like Rubio, again, the Republican Party is doing symbolism. And because he's a Cuban-born American, so some might support him because it's the illusion of inclusion, basically. And but when you look at Marco Rubio, he really don't have a lot of substance at all. He really don't. He seems confused sometimes when he's talking and when he's trying to explain his position. Basically, he's a talking point candidate. One of the main things he was against was us reestablishing relationships with Cuba, which I think is long past due. So he was really against that. So Rubio, I don't think he's going to get the nomination at all. But let me say this. I wouldn't be surprised if he named a vice president running mate. Like whoever won the nomination, I wouldn't be surprised they picked him to be vice president because, again, it looked like they're being diverse with a Cuban American.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to have to run with that term. I love it. The illusion of inclusion.
I wish I made that up, but I didn't make that up, though, just to let people know. So I ain't please right. Didn't make that up.
But either way, I like the term. Thank you for including it into or introducing it into my vocabulary. But yes.
No doubt. I just don't want to get caught like, hey, you said you made that up. Nah, I'm telling y'all right now, I didn't make that up. So just let y'all know. All right.
I hear you. And then we have the only black male Republican candidate by the name of Ben Carson. Now, Ben Carson, he's a retired neurosurgeon. So, and he's already, he's making a little bit of waves, but, as he's already raised $12 million. But his stance will primarily be in the healthcare system. He was against the Affordable Care Act, but being a neurosurgeon, that's pretty much what his stance is going to be. And I don't know how much more he would have to offer as a presidential hopeful.
Yeah. I think you said it perfectly right there. He's a brilliant surgeon. Brilliant. One,
absolutely,
maybe the best in the country. You can actually make that argument that he might have been the best brain surgeon in the country. So he's a brilliant man when it comes to that. But on other issues, again, not a lot of substance. I heard him answer some foreign policy questions, and it wasn't good. Seemed like he was unsure what he was saying, didn't really know what he was talking about, to be honest. Seemed like he was struggling, trying to remember his talking points. So I just don't think you can get far as a presidential hopeful like that. And the other thing too, we gotta remember, since we always were black, I was interested to see his views on black issues, and it's passive to say the least. To really say the least, it was big waves where he said that the shooting in South Carolina was probably racial. I'm like, oh wow, you think? But besides that, he's one of the ones that brings up black on black crime when we're talking about police casualties and stuff like that. He would turn to Chicago, New Orleans, and black people. We gotta be honest with ourselves. He's one of those. He actually said that. I believe we were talking about Ferguson. He was on Sean Handy's show. And he's like, yeah, black people, we need to be honest with ourselves. We got stuff going on in Chicago, D.C., New Orleans, and again, I was like, not this, what about black on black crime thing again? So, I don't think he's going to win the nomination anyway, because like I said, he don't have much besides his healthcare experience. So I don't think you really have to worry about him too much. But even if he was a serious candidate, I wouldn't support him.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. I definitely hear you. And to follow up, the only black Republican candidate, we have the only female Republican candidate thus far, and her name is Carly Fiorina. Now, she's a former business executive, and she takes stance against abortion. She is for same-sex marriage, business, and an aggressive military. But she really doesn't have no specific policy proposals as of yet. One thing I will say, or at least mention to you, is that she was a chief executive of Hewlett and Packard.
Yeah, she was a disaster. She was forced to resign, too, with that. And she, another candidate that don't have a lot of substance at all, she basically is another talking point candidate. Really almost no original policies or no hard stances that go outside the conservative talking points, really. So I'm not going to spend too much time on her. The only thing I got to say is she ran for Senate in 2012, and she had possibly the worst campaign ad ever. It was called Demon Sheep. It was like she said her opponent was a demon sheep. Like, I guess she was trying to play off of wolves in sheep clothing, but the video was like this dude in the sheep costume running around with red eyes. Y'all got, it's hilarious. Y'all got to look it up. It is funny. But that's the only thing I really remember about her campaign. Of course, she lost because she don't have no son. I'm just going to leave it there with her.
Yeah, and absolutely. Like I said, I didn't even know. She's one of the ones that I haven't even heard of before or prior to her running for election, but that's besides the point. Now moving forward to good old Mike Huckabee. And he's the former Arkansas governor, and he's also a former Baptist pastor. So I think a lot of it, for him, he would be riding on the Christian vote. Not all of it, because, obviously there's other Republican candidates who are hardcore Christians, but I think that that's one of the things that he will be riding on. And then also his voters, or the demographics of his voters, would primarily be like the older population and working class, and the working class, because one of his stances is to vow to protect Social Security and Medicare.
Right, and with Republicans, almost all their voters are going to be old people, because it was like a study that was just done. Fox News get heavy ratings, but most of their viewers are over 60. So with Republicans, most of them are going to be old, except for Rand Paul. I think Rand Paul is the only Republican candidate that got a chance to draw significant young voters, because some young voters are into the libertarian thing. But back to Huckabee. Some of y'all might be familiar with Huckabee already, even if you're not that into politics, because he ran for president in 2008, and he actually won the Iowa caucuses in 2008. So I think he could win a state or two. I think I wouldn't be that surprised if he won the first primary again, which is Iowa. But long term, I just don't think he's a viable candidate. He's basically a religious extremist. He one of the people that say that, you know, the United States law is not greater than God's law. You know, so the thing, like, you can have your personal beliefs and all that. That's fine. But we do have separation between church and state. And he's one of those candidates that blur that line. So
yeah, I was just about to say that. I'm glad you said that, because even though there's technically supposed to be separation of church and state, I feel that too often there's so many times where, that's definitely not the case. So it kind of, I think more and more that line is getting blurred.
yeah, I think it's getting a little bit better now, actually, because I think like early 2000s during the era of George W. Bush, it was really bad. I mean, that's basically how George W. Bush won re-election. They used the gay marriage issue, and a lot of people voted for him just because of that. So like, yeah, I think now it's getting a little bit better, because I think as a whole, overall, the country is getting less religious. So therefore, that standard is dropping a little bit. But, and again, he's another candidate that wouldn't be good for black people. He's a candidate that's not against the Confederate flag. And just more than that, too.
Oh, yeah, I've heard some crazy claims coming to him talking about that, you know, Northerners live in a bubble and just pure craziness. But I'm not even going to get into all of that. On to the next one.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on. He's not winning anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
And don't get too excited if he win the first primary, because that's a possibility. I think he could win Iowa, but long term he's not winning. So put that out.
Exactly. So on to the next candidate, we have Rick Santorum. Now, he's a two-term former U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, and so far I've seen that he's been riding on this fact that he warned us of the threat from radical Islam, quote unquote radical Islam. His stances, there's a few things. He's against abortion, and he's also against contraception. And I know that he's against same-sex marriage as well.
Well, he's a clown. He's like one of the biggest clowns in the race, and it's a lot of clowns, but he might be the clown of all clowns. He might be King Clown, basically. Because his position, oh my God, where do I even get started with him? Let me take a deep breath and compose myself. All right. He's a racist, white supremacist. Let's just call it as it is. He said a lot of real slick stuff about black people. I remember this one campaign rally, he was talking about basically welfare and basically how it basically all goes to black people. And then he tried to say, oh, no, I didn't say black people. I said blah people. Like, shut up, white supremacists. Shut up. Also, I remember, I don't know if y'all remember this, but a couple of years ago, President Obama said something about how everybody should get an opportunity to go to college or something to that effect. I forgot exactly what Obama said, but it wasn't a big deal. It was just like a passing statement. Most normal people would be like, oh, whatever. Wouldn't even make news. Well, Santorum said, oh, he's talking about everybody should go to college. What a snob. I'm just like, first,
what?
Yeah. Look it up and like, again, don't just take our words for it. Look up everything we're saying. You will find all these quotes. Because I think I'm into politics a little bit more, maybe a lot more than most other people. So I actually remember this from a few years ago. I don't have the exact quotes in front of me because this is coming to my mind like, yeah, this is something. And remember, he ran for president in 2012, and he came in second place, I believe, in 2012 to Mitt Romney in the 2012 primaries. So he got a long record. And another thing about this clown right here is that he was all for type reform, and that's basically when to put a cap on suing for medical injuries. Say a hospital or a doctor mess you up. He wanted a cap on it, right? And the cap was like in the low 100,000. What's ironic about that is his wife got injured. Hospital didn't do what they're supposed to do, and they sued for more than the cap that he's wanted on it. And and like they asked him about it, and he was just like, "Oh, but it's my wife." I'm like, "What a clown, yo!" He, like I said, he's a king clown, and he's not even that smart, man. Like,
yeah, but isn't that usually how it goes? Like, most people are not able to. Well, I can't say most people, but in some cases, there's people that are not able to understand the plight of certain people or the plight of certain issues until they go through it themselves. Like, a lot of people, like, say, for instance, same-sex marriage. There's a lot of people who are against it, and then all of a sudden they evolve because a cousin came out or a sister came out. You know what I mean? It's things like that. Until it hits home, it hits close enough to home, do they then finally, change on issues that they go so hard for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but we can move on for him because he got no chance of winning either. So he probably won't. I don't think he got enough support to make it to the debates.
Yeah. Well,
so because I think they only like the first debate. I think the first Republican debate is on Fox News, and they only going to take 10 candidates. So the top 10 candidates in the polls is going to be at debates. He won't even make it to the debates, so we can move on from that clown.
And there's already, like I said earlier, there's already 14 Republican candidates. So Let's see exactly how many actually come out. They still have some time, like I stated, but we shall see. But at least of these 14, there's going to be 4 who does not make it.
Yep.
But in any event, moving along, we have George Pataki, and he's a 3-time former New York governor. I wanted to point out, he is the only Republican that is for abortion rights. He's also for same-sex marriage. His stance includes being able to cut government, and he also called for the redeployment of combat troops in Iraq.
Yeah. I almost don't even want to talk about him because he's so unimportant right now. He, really, I don't even, he's one of the candidates. I don't even know why he's running. He don't really have a lot of substance either. He was governor of New York, and most people in New York don't even care about him. I remember him being governor, and he wasn't really that good of a governor because I'm a New York State resident. So, and the fact that, the gay, to each your own with gay marriage, gay marriage is not an issue that I'm going to support a candidate or not support a candidate on. I'm concentrated on other issues besides that. So that's really not a big kudos to me just because the Republicans support that. There's really no issues he stands out on. Like I said, he was a mediocre at best governor. I would say he was a bad governor in New York. So, yeah, he's another one that's not going to make it to the debates either.
Yeah, I hear you. And I just wanted to shout out all my gays. I love my gays. So same-sex marriage or anything in regards to the LGBT community, I definitely do support because I have several people who are close to me who are a part of that community. And, I like to support them as they do support me. But I can understand your stance on it as well. But in any event, we have Lindsey Graham, and he's a senator from South Carolina. South Carolina.
Yeah, he's another white supremacist. Before, I'm going to give a few examples. Before they decided to call for, they didn't even take it down yet, but when they called to take down the Confederate flag from the South Carolina Capitol, he said, he was against it. He was like, yeah, Southern pride, and for a lot of us, it's not racist, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as the governor called for it, he flip-flopped on it. And he also told a story about how his parents used to own this pool hall and how they used to say racist slurs when he was a little kid. I'm not blaming him for that, because if you were a little kid, like, 6, 7, 8, there's really nothing you can do about your parents. But it does give me pause to look at you a little bit closely, though. Also, he's a warmonger. He's one of the biggest hawks there is. He's John McCain's best friend in the Senate. So if you don't want to go to war with Iran or any other war, you shouldn't vote for him, basically. Because you vote for him, we're going to be involved in more military action across the world. So that's how you got to look at Lindsey Graham. Not great on issues for black people and a lot of military action throughout the world, which we're already involved in, but it'd be even more with him.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. And, yeah, that's one of the biggest things with him, with Lindsey Graham. He's very heavy on his message on terrorism. So he seems like he's ready to go to war. Like, aside from that, we do have Rick Perry, and he's the former Texas governor. And basically, he's going to try to use his military, or he has been trying to use his military experience to claim that he would be the best to be the commander-in-chief, or a.k.a. the president of the United States. He did have a decent economic record as governor, so he was riding on that as well. And then he has some issues, or his stance on foreign policy. But what are your thoughts on him?
Another clown. He might actually be dumber than George W. Bush. And I'm not exaggerating. Bush might actually be smarter than him. Man. He ran for president in 2012, and it was a disaster. Like, he was messing up on debate questions. He was just a bad candidate, so I guess he's trying to run to redeem himself. He really got zero chance of winning as well. Also, Texas execute the most people in the United States year after year. The death penalty is huge in Texas. And I remember when he ran for president in 2012, in a debate question, they asked him, is it hard for him to sleep at night, knowing that he might have executed some innocent people? He just said right away, no, and the crowd clapped. Well, it turns out he definitely made the decision to execute some innocent men in Texas. And the whole death, this is the reason why I don't support the death penalty, because like almost every month it's a new case of somebody getting acquitted that was wrongly convicted of a crime because of the new DNA evidence. Because, cops and prosecutors will put pressure on some people they arrest to confess to the crime, especially if they're younger, don't know no better. So there's a lot of innocent people that have been in jail for 20, 30 years that are just starting to come out, and they give them a little bit of money, like that's everything's okay. No, the whole system needs to be reformed, and people like Rick Perry is a major problem in that. Major problem. I don't even know how you live with yourself when you executing innocent people. Well, not all of them is innocent, but the possibility you've been executing innocent people, and he's talking about he doesn't lose any sleep over that. That just shows what type of human being he is. He's a disgraceful human being, basically. That's what I'm saying. So that's my feeling about him.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you, and it's just sad because, like I said, a lot of times these issues don't resonate with them because they don't understand, because it's not something that they personally went through. But it's really sad to see, I'm telling you. And if there's even a 1% chance that this person is really not guilty of this crime, I don't think it's right to, first and foremost, even keep them in prison, but especially to kill them because of it. It's sad. It's sad. And I don't think any human would have the right to take another life, honestly. But
yeah, and like I said, this is not a main issue of mine either, but he's he's strictly anti-abortion as well. If you care about that as well, he's definitely one of the ones that really anti-choice. Him and like people like Huckabee and Santorum. So most of these Republicans are, but he's like one of the top ones with that. Matter of fact, in his state, Texas, make it really hard for abortion clinics to even open up. You gotta jump through a whole bunch of loops. Like I said, that's like I'm just letting people know, for people that care about that issue. Like I said, that's not one of my top issues, but just to let y'all know, because we're trying to be thorough with this and just give you a little bit more information than you might see in the mainstream media about it. So I just want everybody to know the real on that. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's for any woman, I think it would be something that's an important issue. And this is, I think, the problem, because I feel like some people feel that just because someone is pro-abortion, that means that that they're okaying an abortion. What I'm saying, what it really essentially just means is that you're giving the individual woman, the choice to make, for herself. If you make it illegal, then you take away her choice. And I think that's something that's just is really unfortunate. But,
right.
In any event, I'm going to move on from that and go to Bobby Jindal. Now, Bobby Jindal, don't laugh. He was actually elected the Louisiana governor 2 years after Hurricane Katrina. What has he done after that? But he has come out against same-sex marriages. And over time, the polls have shown that he has even become unpopular in his own state.
Yeah, he's a clown, another clown. He's another religious extremist as well. He one of the ones that govern by their religion. So, and that's always find that a little bit dangerous. Also, this is another illusion of inclusion, because he's an Indian American. So, and when I say Indian American, not like Native American, but Indian from India, or his background's from India. But for a time period, last decade, a lot of Republicans thought he was going to be the next one. He was a rising star. They thought he had a chance to win the presidency, but they made the mistake and let him give the response to a State of the Union address when I think it might have been President Obama's first State of the Union address, and they let Bobby Jindal give the reply. My God, that was horrible. And ever since then, nobody been checking him. That's how bad it was. Nobody been checking for him after that. And that might be a little bit superficial, but as you said, his record as governor of Louisiana is not really good either, and he's another religious extremist. So.
Word. So let's discuss Chris Christie. He's the governor of New Jersey, and he's also against abortion. He's a Christian and conservative, very hard conservative. What do you think about Chris Christie?
Actually, a few years ago, I thought he might have a chance to win the nomination, but I don't see how he can win it now. He just got so many scandals around him. If you ever heard of Bridgegate, for those of you who don't know what Bridgegate is, that's what they named the scandal he was involved in to try to slow down traffic on the George Washington Bridge in Jersey. Yeah. So, a lot of it was just like political payback. He misused funds from Hurricane Sandy, because New Jersey got a lot of money during Hurricane Sandy, which, is supposed to be used to rebuild cities and towns. Well, one of the Democratic mayors that was a Democrat didn't support his election campaign, so they used funds against him. So he did a lot of threats, and of course he got it, so a lot of staff members took the fall for him. But I just don't see how he get elected with all these scandals.
Word. And, I mean, this is probably inappropriate to say, but I'm really curious. Do you think America will be ready for their first obese president?
Well, he wouldn't be their first obese president. I believe it was Warren G. Harding that got stuck in the bathtub because he was so fat. But that was before the age of television. So back then it might have been a little bit different. But he's not as fat as he used to be. I think he had one of those surgeries or whatever. But yeah, I actually think a few years ago, if these scandals didn't come out, I think he would have had a chance because he was the governor of a blue state, New Jersey. He was a Republican governor of a blue state. He talks. People think he's a regular guy, even though he's not. But he talked with that. I don't know that he talked that talk that I guess some white people like. I guess I don't know, but people found him personable, even though he bullies some people. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I'm just being a clown in regards to that. But on to the Democrats. Okay, so for the first one I wanted to bring up was Bernie Sanders. Now, he announced that he was running for the U.S. Senate, and he calls himself a democratic socialist, and his stance is to use government to address economic inequality, which I can definitely agree with, namely some things such as the stagnant wages, the decline of unions, and the astronomical student debt. And that's all things that I can get behind, but what are your thoughts on him?
I like Bernie. Out of all the candidates, I probably like him the best. None of these candidates really excite me, though, to be honest. But Bernie, he have a lot of respectable positions. And one thing I respect about Bernie, he's been consistent. He's been very consistent, and he had a long career because he's 73 now. So if he get elected, he'll be 75, by far the oldest president, and that's a concern, too. I don't know if people will elect somebody at that age, you know. Also, you mentioned all the good qualities about him. He's one of the few candidates that is pro-students, and as a college graduate, we definitely need to do something about these student loans and stuff like that, so I'll support him on that. He supports single-payer health care, and single-payer health care is basically just cutting out the insurance companies altogether. So he want to reform the health care system even more than they've been reformed after the Affordable Care Act. I don't know if it's good or bad because we mentioned abortion policies with the Republicans. He is pro-choice, but for those of you who's a little iffy on abortion, I think he support partial birth abortions too. I believe he voted for it. I don't want to take the vote out of context because a lot of these votes there be other stuff in it. But if you pro-life, that might be a deal breaker for you. Also, he's a very strong supporter of Israel. I know some people will have a problem with that just because the situation is going on with the Palestinians. That's not a make or break issue for me, but like that's something you definitely have to be aware on. One thing I do like about Bernie, he was in the civil rights struggle. He was one of the white people that was doing sit-ins and stuff like that. So he's been consistent. He probably got the best record when it comes to like civil rights and black issues than all the other candidates. So he getting a lot of he's starting to catch a lot of momentum right now too. So I don't know if he actually would catch enough to win, but Hillary campaign might be looking out for him now.
Yeah, absolutely. And on to the guy that I claim must be too sexy for his shirt, and that's not my personal opinion. This is just going on the things that he's been doing. But Martin O'Malley, he's the former governor of Maryland. He actually served 2 terms as mayor and 2 terms as governor. And in Maryland, there's a 67% of their population is African American, and he vows to help the middle class. And so far, it seems like he's been trying to use his looks to do so. And it's just funny because I know that he's going to like bars and things, either sleeveless or shirtless, just playing, his guitar at bars. And he's also a new face. But what are your thoughts on Martin O'Malley?
Unimpressive. Black, have zero chance of winning, basically. He was mayor of Baltimore for 2 terms. And when he was mayor, it's a mixed record. Some people give him credit for cutting crime, but also during his administration, especially in his second term, the police violence picked up. And the ACLU sued Baltimore for the police practices even before this Freddie Gray incident. So he kind of got a mixed record on that. But overall, unimpressive candidate in my opinion.
Okay. And moving on to Lincoln Chafee. Now, he's a former governor of Rhode Island, and he is one that is for the books. He's a former Republican turned independent turned Democrat, and his stance is on the economy, environment, and most notably national security. And his votes seem to be more so towards or the heavy percentage of his votes seem to come from the upper-class white liberals. And I think it's also important because, honestly, he's not someone who's too familiar with, I'm too familiar with. But in all things, I think it's important to follow the money trail. And when you do so, I found out that he's actually one of the descendants he's a descendant of one of Rhode Island's founding 5 families. Oh. So what are your thoughts on him as a presidential hopeful?
I think he got 0% chance of winning, but there's some of his policy issues because, like I said, the mainstream media usually get caught up on that, so we want to go a little bit deeper. There's some things that he did that I really respect, and other things I'm like, okay, let me get to the things I respect. I respect the fact when he was in the Senate, he was a U.S. Senator, and he was actually a Republican this time. He was the only Republican to vote against the Iraq War. So he get props for that. He get major props for that because that actually shows a lot of balls. So and that's going out on the limb at the time because that was the unpopular thing to do because most Democrats voted for the Iraq War. So he get props for that. But where he fall off to me is he support the Trans-Pacific Partnership. TPP, which we talked about briefly last week, and I think I'm going to start doing some more videos on YouTube on that. It's a terrible trade deal that the Obama administration, the White House, is pushing. Just terrible, and he's a big supporter of that. So he gets a strike in that department, in my opinion, and also I don't know where his ball is at when it comes to the legalization of marijuana, but he's like, I think it should be decriminalized, which, okay, cool. And let's see what happened in Colorado. I mean, like, how much more evidence do you need? So that's my opinion on him.
Yeah, I hear you. Now we have the second to the last is Jim Webb, and he's a former U.S. Senator. He believes that he understands the role of leadership, and also he believes that he will be successful in implementing bipartisan solutions.
Jim Webb, if you black, you shouldn't vote for him. Let me put it like that. Just plain and simple. He just came out and supported the Confederate flag, basically. He didn't actually say he supported, but he was just like, the need to slow down, and basically he supported. He supported without directly saying he supported. And before I fully go in on him, I think he was one of the people that was challenging the Bush administration last decade about his policy in Iraq and stuff like that, because he was a former member of the military. I think he went to the Vietnam War and stuff like that. He was the Secretary of the Navy, so he got a good military record. But in his own words, he's the candidate for white people, and specifically white males. And he doesn't deny it. That's how he basically pitching his campaign. So he's saying, look this up. I'm not making this up. He said that that racial inclusion have basically come at the cost of the white working class. So, like, policies to help, African Americans and Latinos come at the cost of white males. So he's one of those type of people. So you got to be very careful with those, with that type of talk. Because I'm like, so what you trying to say? You trying to say you have your policy is going to basically focus on the white middle class? And basically, yes, that's basically exactly what he's saying, and not trying to hide it. And he's not trying to hide it. He's not even really trying to talk in code too much. So if you black, don't vote for him.
I hear you. And lastly, we have Hillary Clinton. Now, she ran in 2008 and lost against Obama, but then served as his the Secretary of State under him. Now, she has 100% name recognition. Everyone knows her name. She did a fantastic job in branding. She has concrete support of working-class women. And she also has a huge financial advantage, as she has the Super PAC, which is PAC just stands for Political Action Committee, which has raised $15.6 million for her campaign. But how do you feel about Hillary?
Don't like her at all. Again,
you say you like her or you don't?
No, don't. I don't like her at all.
Okay.
There's very few politicians I actually really like, and she's not one of them. Now, I think she get a pass on a lot of stuff from black people. Her and her husband Bill Clinton got a lot of passes. You know, the
Word.
Like, yeah, like we going to talk about this another time because the Supreme Court just decided voted down parts of the 3-strike law that they came up with in the 90s. That was under her husband Bill Clinton. And you remember in 2008 when Obama won Iowa and was in South Carolina, he was ahead in the polls in South Carolina. They started doing those white dog whistles, those white supremacist dog whistles in 2008, and how easily we forget. They didn't say nothing outright, but they used a lot of little code words, her and Bill, when they was running against Obama in 2008, talking about, he won South Carolina. Bill Clinton said, he won South Carolina, but Jesse Jackson won South Carolina too. Or they was bringing up, during the 60s, the Civil Rights era, they was basically insinuating that, you need a president to do all this stuff. Martin Luther King was good and all that, but they made it out like Lyndon B. Johnson was the main cause of the Civil Rights movement. Little stuff like that. Plus, she voted for the Iraq War. She rarely steps out of the comfort zone. You know, she get a lot of money for Wall Street. You follow the money trail. She basically a Wall Street puppet. That's how her and Bill made most of their money after presidency. So,
Word.
She probably gonna win though.
I'm thinking so, and it's so funny because before I knew any of this stuff, I did support Hillary, but it comes out that when she's very good at being able to try to sway the black vote, because essentially the black vote is going to be, I can't say it's going to be, it can be the deciding factor on who wins the election. But I did want to just point out something really quickly, because she constantly, in order to gain the support of blacks, what she typically does is go ahead and retells the story about her hearing the speech from MLK from 1963, and to try to gain that type of, to resonate with the black community. But it's also important to know that during those days, she was a young Republican. She actually headed the Young Republican group in her college, Wellesley College, and she was the Goldwater girl. Goldwater is the man who ran against Lyndon B. Johnson. And also, it's just so many other things, but we'll go ahead and post it on Facebook for you guys. But just be sure to go ahead and do your own research, and I'm going to let Sewell wrap it up.
Definitely co-sign everything Ms. Baba just said, and hopefully you enjoyed the show. And we tried to get deeper than most shows go. We're not trying to have those superficial discussions. We're trying to get in real detail, and it was brief. But again, you have any questions, you can email us at alwaysforblack@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. I'm going to be putting up some videos. Check out our Facebook page, Always for Black on Facebook. Follow us on Always for Black on Twitter. Peace, people.
Peace.